There is a new controller for the Nintendo Switch with Hall effect joysticks called the Dragonshock Nebula Ultimate. I've been using it for a couple of days now and want to talk about it. I'll start with a hopefully comprehensive pros and cons list if you don't want to watch the entire thing, but then afterwards I'll be talking about it some more if you're interested. So starting off with the pros. It's more affordable at 45 euros plus 5 euros of shipping. It uses Hall effect joysticks. It can wake the system. It has 4 back buttons that can be remapped and used for macros. It has pleasant rumble. It's not HD rumble, but it's adjustable. Face buttons and the bumpers feel good. It has decent motion controls. The battery life is pretty good. The D-pad doesn't accidentally register diagonal inputs. It can be used on the Switch, PC, mobile, and even the PlayStation 3. It comes with a 2-meter long USB-C cable. It has a comfortable shape and nice materials, at least in my opinion, and it has RGB LEDs if that's something you like. Now for the cons, there's no NFC. The placement and the shape of the plus and minus buttons is weird. The sticks linger a little bit on the Y and X axis. The front design is just a wrap that might wear off. There are some slight visual imperfections like little scuffs and some bubbles under the wrap. The back buttons are too close to each other to rest the fingers on all 4 of them at the same time, at least for my hands, and the D-pad is a bit too low in my opinion. To be honest, when I first took the controller out of the box, I felt disappointed because I found some things that I wasn't happy with, mainly the sticks and the D-pad. But then I started using the controller and mostly forgot about these issues. The D-pad, for example, while it isn't the favorite out of the ones that I have, I still enjoy using it in 2D games like Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Mario Maker. A lot of Mario here, I know. The controller doesn't accidentally register diagonal inputs when just pressing up, for example, which strangely seems to be an issue with a lot of controllers nowadays. Same thing for the sticks. In the beginning I checked them in the system settings and saw that they lingered a little bit on the X and Y axis, but then when I was playing I didn't notice that. Now granted, I might not be playing games where I have to be super precise, but in my experience when using them they are totally fine. Talking about the controller in general, I ended up really enjoying using it. It's comfortable to hold and all the main buttons and sticks feel great to use, to the point where I'm the one to blame if I suck at a game and not the controller, unfortunately. There are 2 versions of this controller, the Nebula Ultimate and the Nebula Pro. The Ultimate has Hall effect joysticks, the Pro doesn't, and you can tell them apart mostly by color. The candy and the pink one, so basically just the 2 pink versions, are the Nebula Ultimate and the black and white ones are the Nebula Pro. The price difference is about 5 to 10 euros, and I think the only difference is really the sticks. It comes with a 2-meter long USB-A to USB-C cable for charging it or using it with a wired connection, either on the PC or the Switch itself, and you can also play while charging. There's also a manual in the box in case you need to look something up, but that will be also available online on the website. According to the manual, they use a 550 mAh battery, and they say the battery lasts for about 6 to 8 hours, and it takes about 3 hours to charge. However, I played for like 7 or more hours already and I'm only at 50% of the battery, so I think you can get 10 or even more hours out of it. Also, my playtime was with the LEDs and with the rumble on. The D-pad is a little weird in my opinion because it's almost flush with the shell and the clicks are not really as strong or tactile enough for me, personally. I wish it was raised a bit higher and the clicks would just click a little more. Also, you can sort of press in the middle. I didn't have an issue with this, but I thought I should mention it. The placement of the minus button is quite unfortunate because you have to go like across and under the left thumbstick if you want to reach it, so that's kind of uncomfortable to do. And the plus and minus buttons in general have a weird shape to them, which makes me question sometimes if I actually even hit the button. This is also again because they don't have a strong click to them, although most of the time I did end up hitting the button. This is quite forgivable though in my opinion, considering the price point and that these aren't the main buttons. The home button on this controller is actually the big one in the middle, kind of like on an Xbox controller, and if you want to enter pairing mode you have to hold that one for a couple of seconds, and then it will very quickly sync to the console or PC. Once it's synced up to the Switch, it's even able to wake the console from sleep. I find that a bit weird, although it's nice, but they don't mention that anywhere, not in the manual, not on the box I think, and also not online. It's cool to see, of course, especially because not that many third-party controllers have this feature. One other weird thing, by the way, is that the screenshot button is on the right side, which on most controllers it's on the left side, so it's gonna take a little bit of time getting used to that, and I ended up accidentally hitting the screenshot button a few times when I was trying to pause the game by pressing the plus button. The back buttons have a kind of muted but still nice click to them. and programming them is very easy. You just press the set button in the back until the LED in front flashes, and then you hit the button that you want to assign and then the button you want to assign it to. You can program a macro like a jump and cappy throw into a dive combo in Mario Odyssey, for example, or just normal jumping, sprinting, whatever you want. Another thing to note is that you can use multiple back buttons at the same time. So in Zelda you can sprint with one, for example, and then jump with the other one. This might seem weird for me to point out, but the previous controller that I reviewed wasn't able to do that. I could only actuate one at a time. If you want to reset the back buttons, you can also do that by pressing the set button and then pressing the button that you want to reset. You can also reset basically the entire controller by hitting the button in the little hole next to the set button in the back. You're gonna need a needle or something very tiny like a semi-jack tool if it's long enough for that. Now, of course, this controller also has rumble. It's not HD rumble or anything like that, but I think it feels quite nice. It's fairly standard, but by no means does it feel bad or anything. You can adjust it by holding the T button and then pressing up and down on the left stick. And that same T button can also be used for the turbo mode. You turn it on by pressing the T button and the button that you want to turbo. And then whenever you hold that button, it auto fires. And if you hold T and that button again, it then just automatically hits that button. If you hold T and the button again, then it stops the turbo, just like on basically any other controller that has this feature. And you can also adjust the speed of this turbo by again holding the T button and now pressing up or down on the right stick. I've played around with the motion controls a little bit, but I don't use them that much, so I'm not a great person to ask how great they are, but I didn't have issues with them, so they're at least good enough for me. This seems to be a very new product by I think, new company, because they have a certification file on their website that shows the date that this one was certified, and it shows the September of 2023, so only a couple of months ago. And what I found so interesting about it was that it looked very different from all the other controllers that I've seen on like AliExpress, Amazon, and so on. There's a good amount of controllers out there that look very much the same because they probably all come from the same factory in China and then companies just put their logo on them and sell them under different names. But this controller doesn't really look like any of the ones that I've seen. Yeah, it's a bit similar, but especially the 5 buttons in the middle, the minus, plus, turbo, screenshot, and the home button. This alignment I've never seen on any other controller. So I think this is actually their own design. And also most of the other controllers don't have Hall effect joysticks. The design on the front is just like a wrap. In some places you can see that it's just the same pink as the bottom shell. Because of that, it has a nicer rubberized feel on top, but I feel like over time this might wear off like a sticker with each and every scratch and sweat mark on there. As I've mentioned earlier, the sticks seem to favor the inputs for vertical and horizontal inputs, although I want to mention again that I didn't notice that in-game. It's still weird to me though, because they seem to focus on the joysticks in their marketing, because on the box it says Hall effect sensors for non-drifting, then non-drifting again, no dead zone and high accuracy. And then the last part I expected to have an issue would be the joysticks. When using a gamepad tester, it showed an average error of about 5% with a wired connection, and on a laptop with Bluetooth it was a bit higher, I think. For reference, the MobilePad G2, which also uses Hall effect joysticks, has less than 1% of an error over Bluetooth, but then almost 20% through a wired connection. I don't know why that is, but the DualSense has 8% over wired connection, the Switch Pro controller 4 to 6%, and the Google Stadia controller about 9%. I have great news for gamers all around the world, because it is my honor to let you know that this controller does in fact have RGB LEDs that are even customizable. You can swap through the different modes with a set button on the back. With each press it just goes through a different mode. First it cycles through the different colors, then it's static colors, and then it's off. It's a bit strange though. In the manual it says some of the colors in the end are pink and then orange, although on mine it looks like white and yellow. Don't know what that's about, maybe it's just an error in the manual. When looking at the back of the controller, the plastic kind of looks like cheap plastic, but when holding it in your hands it doesn't really feel like that at all. It even has like a textured finish, at least on the parts where most of your palm and fingers are gonna rest, and this does actually give you better grip. It does feel nice playing games with this controller, even despite some of the negative aspects that I've mentioned. To sum this whole thing up, I think this controller gives you a good overall package with a lot of features for a more affordable price than, say, the Switch Pro controller, but it does come with a few minor flaws in my opinion that you need to decide for yourself whether they would matter to you or not. Either way, I think that you would be getting a good controller. To be fully honest, I'm probably gonna send this controller back, but only because I already have better ones that, while they are more expensive, I think I would rather use those to play games with than this one. However, I think if you don't already have a Pro controller, for example, or want to pick up a second controller to play with a friend, then I think this controller could honestly be a pretty decent option at a lower price point. After all, the original Switch Pro controller usually costs about 65 to 70 bucks. Anyway, that wraps this video up. Thank you.